Hello, everyone. My name is Mackenzie, and today I'm tackling the daunting topic of reality and what it's composed of. And to make it substantially more interesting and controversial, I will do so by denying the existence of matter itself through the explanation that Berkeley gives as an immaterialist. Basically, this argument insists that our perception is the true determinant of reality. Initially, Berkeley seems a bit out of his mind. I mean, to deny matter, we defy everything that we've been taught to regard as true, and it seems to make no coherent sense given the physical world that surrounds us. We can see objects, feel textures, hear sounds, and so on, so how is it that these things don't actually exist? Well, what it boils down to is the simple fact that everything we interpret is, it's an interpretation. That's exactly what it is. We've all been asked the question, if a tree falls and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I sat and I pondered this for quite a long time, actually, but not just this scenario. We can apply the same principle to, say, a gallon of milk that's left out past its expiration. If the milk is left out in a room with nobody in it, does it still smell bad? Well, the most logical answer I've settled on in response to these questions is that sound and smell are merely perceptions. When the tree falls, the vibrations from the impact are produced, but with nobody around to interpret these vibrations, we cannot technically call it a sound. And the same goes for the odor that's produced by the expired milk. If nobody's around to perceive it, then it can't technically be a bad smell. Here is where it becomes increasingly important to acknowledge the misleading nature of our perceptions. Our sensory tools are the main way in which we as humans interact with the world around us, so it seems unreasonable that they could provide us with such false information. But hear me out and consider hallucinations as a point of reference. Whether they're under the influence of certain medications or mental conditions, it is obvious that our senses, in tandem with our brains, play tricks on us. However, who are we to say that someone's hallucinations aren't actually real? If I hear, smell, and see things clear as day during a hallucination episode, those remain very true experiences to me. And similarly, our dreams often reflect genuine aspects of life, but there's sometimes things that are a bit unrealistic as well. Again, though, what makes these visions and sensations any less real than those that we perceive while we're awake? I mean, at the biological level, these things are all the same. They're responses to a stimuli that are translated into brain waves. One is no different from the other. Now that we have a bit of background and some examples to reference, I hopefully now can relate these ideas to Berkeley's assertion that matter doesn't exist. Well, we begin with perceptions, which is how we interpret things of the world. Perceptions obviously vary from individual to individual, and by nature they prove to be quite unreliable. These perceptions can then be classified as ideas constructed by the mind, which is where we can acknowledge their immaterial existence. So, in summary of Berkeley's argument, objects are simply collections of ideas that exist in a mind when they are perceived by someone. If this still has not convinced you enough, let's continue to observe how another philosopher, John Locke, poses a theory that further supports my argument. We earlier discussed that primary and secondary qualities of an object define what it is. As a quick refresher, though, primary qualities are factual qualities that belong to the object itself. Things like solidity, volume, and size are all primary qualities. These things can be measured and agreed upon unanimously. In other words, these are universal constant. Secondary qualities, however, are composed of objective perceptions. Qualities such as color, texture, and taste will vary depending on who's perceiving them, and thus we can't really consider them to be set in stone like primary qualities. With these definitions in mind, I want you to consider a tree only with regard to its true primary qualities. It's kind of impossible, actually. We cannot think of a tree without the associated secondary qualities like the roughness of its bark. We can't ignore the brown of the trunk and the green of the leaves, and furthermore, the branching structure and the broad body of the tree are inherent ideas that flood our mind when we think of a tree. Needless to say, primary qualities cannot exist without the secondary qualities, and these secondary qualities have proven to be very flawed and untrue judgments of reality. Ultimately, if the seeming factual properties of an object are unreliable, then we cannot depend on the matter itself to have true existence. What I don't want to mislead you into believing is that, well, for one, I'm crazy, and for two, that I believe reality is a complete lie in itself. Instead, I urge you to see that we really just have it all wrong when it comes to determining what reality consists of. Reality is not meant to be a universal constant. There is no way we could ever unanimously decide what is real and what is false just by perceptually deceiving um, factors that play into it. Morals are a prime example to emphasize just how divided humanity is on what is true and what is false. I would urge you that, or I would argue that reality is actually quite objective. Everyone's reality is unique because of how we perceive things differently. It may seem like a daunting thought that reality, something that by nature should be completely certain, is actually quite undefinable. That lack of certainty is the exact reason why this is such a controversial philosophical concept. I want to thank you for listening to me ramble, and I hope that I've opened your mind to the possibility that everything that you once thought to be true doesn't actually exist. So, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye and that it's been great working with you all this semester. Thank you.